Hello and welcome to the Experiencing Love podcast. I'm your host, Philip Jocks, and I'm so glad that you're here. Perfection gets in the way of greatness. That's the last line I have on what I'm calling my creeds. I don't know. I actually don't have a name for it yet. But I do have this list of 11 lines on a massive whiteboard directly next to me by my workspace. And each line reminds me of something different. But the very last line is perfection gets in the way of greatness. And that in itself is a very important reminder to me. And I hope that it's an important reminder to you as well. Perfection is truly the lowest standard that we could aim to achieve. The reason being that we can never be perfect. We can never achieve perfection. We can never achieve perfection. And because of that, by saying that you want things to be perfect or that you're aiming for perfection, to say that you want things to be perfect or that you're aiming, and to say that, I just have to pause real quick because I just had my own perfection gets in the way of greatness moment. I am trying to perfectly say a sentence and I kept stumbling over my words. So I tried 2 or 3 times. And honestly, I'll probably leave it in there just to show you that I was trying to make it perfect. I was trying to make it not pop and I was trying to make it sound right. But in reality, by trying to do that, it's taking away the greatness of the moment, of what I'm actually trying to say, what I'm actually feeling. And we as humans do that in so many areas of our lives. Because when you're aiming for perfection, it's a perfection that's coming out of your head, not your heart. You know, getting into that flow state, getting into that peak state where you're just in the zone, that doesn't come from using your head. That doesn't come from being so driven to achieve that state that you get there. In a way, it actually comes from letting go and letting things happen and being more fluid, being more natural with it. As I like to say, it's when your heart takes over, because your head most of the time knows what to do. But when you start to think about what you're doing and you're overthinking it, it gets in the way of greatness. It gets in the way of greatness because you're evaluating yourself in that moment and you've decided that you're nitpicking certain things and saying, that could be done better, I could do that better. But the more you do that, the less focused you are on the topic, on the activity, and the worse it gets. But I found that when I do things naturally and I just, for instance, on this podcast, just start speaking and I let my heart get into it. I don't think about what I'm saying so much as I feel what I'm saying. I find I get into a mode where I stumble less. I don't mix up my words. I don't stutter. The filter's not popping. It's all of these things. And that comes from that moment of being in my heart, aiming for greatness, not perfection. It doesn't have to be perfect. You guys are going to hear a pop every once in a while. You guys are going to hear the weird noises that our mouths make when we speak, because those pop up too. And let me tell you, from recording this podcast every single day, I can't unhear it anymore. And it's not just me, it's for everyone. When I hear someone speaking into a microphone, it could be on TV, it could be in a YouTube video, in another podcast, I hear all the little noises now. And it's so bizarre because those things have always been there, but now my brain is trained for it. And for better or worse, that's just how it is. That's just how it is. The reason perfection gets in the way of greatness is so relevant to me today as well is today's a day that doesn't look like most others. It's a Monday, but all my family's home. It's President's Day. My family gets days off from work, and we've created plans for the day, which also is not typical for a Monday for me. And I had this moment where I found myself trying to control my schedule, my day. And I was trying to line everything up perfect, saying, okay, you know what? We could do these plans, but we might have to take 2 cars so that I could leave early so that I could go home and do work and yada, yada, yada. And I just thought about it before recording this episode, and I was doing my meditation, and I said, Philip, you're about to go out and spend time with family. Family you haven't seen in who knows how many weeks, maybe nearly 2 months, and you want to cut that short to do work? You say you value family, but you want to do work? Because I also know that the work is going to be here. It's going to be waiting for me. But I won't always have these moments with my family. So rather than try to make today perfect and say, yeah, I'm going to balance out family time and work time, I remembered my old core belief, which isn't really my old core belief, it's still my core belief. I guess the better word is fundamental core belief. That everything happens for a reason and everything is going to happen exactly as it's supposed to. So rather than try to go and keep this tight grip on the control that I trick myself into thinking that I have. I just want to go and experience the greatness of the moment. I don't have to make it perfect because I know I can't, but I know I could get into that flow state if I just accept and experience the moment. Perfection gets in the way of greatness. The same honestly goes for my business. Truly. I say I still need to do 3 or 5 different other steps before I can release my first plan, my first product, before I can release my lead magnet, before I can start advertising and doing social media, whatever my excuse is. And a part of that has to do with me wanting to get as close to perfection as possible. And it's stopping me from greatness. And you know what the reason for all of this is? The reason we all want to strive for perfection, even though we can't, it's because of fear. It's a fear that I'm feeling. It's hard to notice in the moment. I don't want to say that. It's been hard to notice in the moment, and I'm getting better at it. I'm getting better at noticing when I have a legitimate reason for things or if it's just an emotion like fear getting in the way of me making real progress and real change. So when I just read the line, perfection gets in the way of greatness, it reminds me of all the times that I gave up or I stopped trying on something because I couldn't be remotely close to perfect at it. There's times in my life where I remember I wanted to train for an Ironman. And for some context, at that time, I had no experience running. The last time I swam was months or even years before. And I loved riding bikes, but I did it just about 4 times a year. And something came over me and said, I want to complete an Ironman. And don't get me wrong, it is still on my list. It's on my list of things that I will accomplish. And I remember the few times that I went to start training for it, the reason I stopped each time was because I was trying to make my training routine perfect. I was trying to train for, I think it might have been 15 to 20 hours a week or something like that. Something heavy. And I also wanted to completely revamp my diet and my sleep schedule. I'm trying to think of what else. And thus that would have meant changing my work schedule and changing when I would hang out with my friends and family. So pretty much I was trying to completely change my life. And each time doing something like that, trying to become perfect from the beginning, it stopped me from ever moving forward and ever trying. And I gave up. The one right before it, the creed right before perfection gets in the way of greatness, is when life gets hard, it's about to get better. That's just to say that no hard time lasts forever. It might last a long time. It might feel like forever. Maybe the fear of trying to be perfect, that might last a couple minutes for sure. But when you're met with something hard, a situation in your life that's hard, and you choose to take it head on, and you choose to do something about it and not let it happen to you or happen passively, but you meet the challenge head on, it means that life is about to get better, way better. So when I feel these fears and I stop myself and say that I need to make something as good as I can before I release it, saying I just need to make this a little bit better first is code word for perfection. It truly is. I've always loved the concept in businesses, making products and releasing products, and they have what's called an MVP, a minimal viable product. What is the most skeleton version of what you have that you could release now? You could improve it later, because I also believe in consistent and never-ending improvement and optimization and maximization. You could always make something better, but sometimes the hardest step is starting and releasing that MVP, the bare minimum. And the bare minimum is not going to be anywhere near perfect, and it's also not going to be anywhere near great. But very rarely will you do anything that starts out great, starts out with greatness. There's this line I used to love saying to myself, say it less so now, but I still have it quoted on a lot of my business documents. And it says, all ideas lead to good ideas. All ideas lead to good ideas. And I wrote that because there were times that I would have ideas that felt silly. They felt like they wouldn't work, and I had no idea why they even came up. But what I also found is when I wrote those down and I ruminated on them and I let them kind of simmer in my brain, they actually gave inspiration to even better ideas. And when I let those ideas sit, they gave inspiration to even better ideas after that. And they led to good ideas and then great ideas. The same thing works with this whole perfection thing. Start off with the bare minimum, the MVP, the minimal viable product of anything that you want to do. And let that simmer and become something good. And then let that become something great. And then let that become something outstanding, something that stands out apart from everything else. When I walk into these episodes and I say that I don't have a plan for what I'm going to talk about, it's because I used to try to create these plans. I used to try to create these scripts and these bullet points of talking points that I wanted to do. And that was me trying to curate an experience that was perfect. It showed up in my social media videos back then, and creating those felt stale and inauthentic. And that partly had to do with me feeling inauthentic about myself. And now I just recognize that what feels most real to me is just sitting down and spilling my heart, letting my lover come out and say what it needs to say. Every morning I tell myself, I've been primed by God to love since the day I was born. Since the day I was born. I can track how every single memory I have and every single experience that I experience has led me to today, has led me towards the emotion of love. Growing up, it was either experiencing massive amount of love or experiencing a lack thereof, which helped me value love. Love is not perfect. Love is full of pleasure and pain. It's wild, it's fun, it's sensual. It's also scary and uncomfortable. So I tap into my lovers so that I could harness that power, harness that energy. Because the truth is, everything that we do comes from a place of emotion or wanting emotion. You learn to harness that, you learn to embrace that, and you learn to take back a massive amount of power and control over yourself. Because that's all you can ever really do. You can influence the world, but you can only control yourself. And on theme with today's episode, you're not going to control yourself perfectly. But if you start now and take it day by day, you'll achieve greatness. So I hope you have a beautiful and wonderful rest of your day. Remember to fill up with the love. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I love you.